What is a GMO? At its very heart, a GMO is any living thing. It could be a plant, an animal, or even a tiny microbe whose genetic blueprint has been changed in a very specific way by scientists. Think of DNA as the complete instruction manual for that organism. Genetic engineering, then, is the tool that lets scientists carefully open that manual and edit a single instruction. The science that makes all of this possible is called recombinant DNA technology. Now, that sounds complicated, but the idea behind it is actually quite simple and elegant. It gives scientists the ability to find a specific, helpful trait in one organism, let's say a gene that helps a plant resist disease, and then carefully transfer just that piece of genetic code into another organism. It's like giving it a new instruction it didn't have before. So now we know what a GMO is in theory, but how do scientists actually do it? How do they make that precise change to the DNA? Let's zoom in now to the molecular level and take a look at the different methods they use. You know, creating a GMO isn't a single process. It's more like a toolbox with different tools for different jobs. Some methods cleverly use a natural bacterium to deliver the new gene. Another method uses a device that's literally called a gene gun. And more recently, we have incredibly precise gene editing systems like CRISPR, which work almost like a pair of molecular scissors. To make this a bit clearer, let's walk through one of the most common methods step by step. First, scientists identify and isolate the specific gene they want to transfer. Second, they insert this gene into a special, naturally occurring bacterium. Third, this bacterium acts as a tiny delivery vehicle, carrying the new gene and inserting it right into the plant's cells. And finally, that new gene becomes a permanent part of the plant's own instruction manual. So, we have this amazing ability to edit the code of life. But this technology isn't just something that happens in a laboratory. Let's explore where it shows up in our world, from the food we grow to the medicines we rely on. And the impact, especially in agriculture, has been massive. Genetic modification has truly changed the way many of the world's most important crops, like corn, soybeans, and cotton, are grown and managed. When we look at agriculture, the goals of creating GMOs tend to fall into two main categories. The first is about helping the crop itself, making it stronger, more resilient, and able to produce more food. The second category is about improving the food's quality, enhancing it to make it more nutritious for the people who eat it. Let's look at a few examples of making crops stronger. Some are engineered to tolerate specific herbicides, which allows farmers to manage weeds more effectively. Others are given a gene from a bacteria, often called Bt, which lets the plant produce its own natural protection against certain insect pests. And some are even designed to be tougher in difficult conditions, like a long period of drought. Now, when we talk about improving nutrition, the most famous example is probably golden rice. It was carefully engineered to produce beta-carotene, which is what our bodies use to make vitamin A. And this is so important because in many parts of the world, a lack of vitamin A is a serious health problem, especially for children. Golden rice was created with the hope of being a part of the solution. But the use of this technology doesn't stop in our fields. It also plays a really critical role in modern medicine, in an area sometimes called molecular farming. In this process, simple organisms like the bacteria E. coli or even yeast are genetically modified so that they become tiny living factories. They're given the genetic instructions to produce complex, life-saving medicines. This is how we get much of the world's insulin for treating diabetes, as well as human growth hormones and many advanced antibody therapies. Of course, with any powerful new technology, it's absolutely essential that we carefully and thoughtfully study its potential impacts. So, let's turn our attention now to the key questions that scientists ask about the safety and environmental effects of GMOs. One of the most important questions that has to be answered is, what happens when these modified organisms are grown out in the environment? How do they interact with the ecosystem around them? Scientific research here tends to focus on two major areas. First is the possibility that the new gene could spread to wild relatives, maybe through pollen traveling on the wind. The second area is making sure there are no unintended consequences for what are called non-target organisms. For example, making sure that a plant designed to resist a harmful caterpillar doesn't also harm beneficial insects like bees or butterflies. And of course, the other side of the coin is human health. It's incredibly important to make sure that any food made from a genetically modified crop is just as safe to eat as its conventional counterpart. The safety assessments here also focus on two main points. First is something called allergenicity. Scientists run very detailed tests to make sure that any new protein in the food doesn't have the characteristics of a known allergen. And second is toxicity, which involves careful analysis to confirm that the food is safe and wholesome. So with all of these complex scientific questions about safety and the environment, you obviously need a strong system of rules and oversight. This brings us to our last section. How is this technology actually governed and regulated around the world? This slide shows us the two main ideas behind regulation. On one hand, you have international agreements, like the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety, which sets global standards for safe handling. And on the other hand, regulators use a scientific principle called substantial equivalence. This is really a detailed comparison process where the modified food is analyzed against its conventional version to ensure it is just as safe.